everybody, and welcome to Hawkeye Month. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Hawkeye Month. Ooh, I've said that twice now. Should we say it a third time? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hawkeye Month. Boy, howdy. Hawkeye is my favorite fictional character ever created, and I am so happy to do a whole month's worth of videos about him. This is, of course, the first video in that, and my ultimate goal is to be acknowledged by Disney by receiving some Hawkeye merch, like in the boxes they send to influencers. They've done this for Loki, they did it for WandaVision, and I would like to receive the Hawkeye one if there is one. So that is sort of the end goal of all this, but none of it is manufactured. I love Hawkeye. To the point where I actually struggled a little bit to decide what the first video should be. I thought about going through the character's comic book origins. I thought about, maybe my origins to the character, talking about why I like him so much. But what I decided on to start with is the most well-known version is the MCU version. And while I wouldn't say that's necessarily my favorite version because My Life as a Weapon exists and Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes exist, although we'll see after the show, MCU Hawkeye is incredibly cool and has some really original aspects to his character that I'm just all about. It jazzes me up. So I thought reviewing that character and going through every one of his MCU appearances felt like a good start for these videos. So, without further ado, let's review every Hawkeye appearance, starting with the very first one, not in Avengers, but in Thor. So, the Thor appearance is actually pretty short-lived. It's a cameo at best. That being said, it is a really cool cameo. You see Hawkeye holding a sniper rifle, and then he instead chooses his bow. He takes aim with the said bow and has a dead shot on Thor. He doesn't end up taking the shot, but this is a really badass intro, especially because he is standing in the rain, this huge rainstorm, and his aim never wavers. He's just ready to take the shot should he need to. It's really awesome to see. I think that this is a mysterious intro to the character. It's hard to judge it on its own because it is so short, but it's cool. It builds mystique. It gets people into the idea. I think it's a great first appearance, and if he had to cameo in something before Avengers, I think it's cool that it was this. Also, it has been teased in the What If trailer that this moment might be revisited, ladies and gents. We could get a What If Hawkeye killed Thor, potentially. And I am all about that. But let's go into his first main appearance in the Avengers. Now, the Avengers did something very creative with Hawkeye. Hawkeye as a character started as a villain to Iron Man. So, Hawkeye starts as a mind-controlled villain in this. It makes all the sense. Black Widow, of course, snaps him out of it. But it is kind of cool, and plus, it shows how dangerous he really is. Hawkeye kind of becomes Loki's right-hand man in this movie, and he nearly takes out the Avengers more than once. A lot of credit is given to Loki, because it was his plan to, use the Hulk to destroy the helicarrier. But Hawkeye acted out that plan. Using nothing but a couple arrows, he nearly took out the whole helicarrier. I mean, I don't know what the badass scale is for you guys, but that's pretty high on my book. Anyways, the trick arrows are the really big stars of Hawkeye's appearances in this one. We do get a couple. We get his hacker arrow, we get a handful of explosives, including one arrow that splits into several different arrows, including one that shoots bullets or shrapnel into people's necks. And, of course, the best scene is when he uses the grapple arrow. I like this version of Hawkeye, although I do think there's a couple missed opportunities for him. Number one, and I'm sure I'll do a later video about all this, I wish the costume was changed. I wish the purple was more pronounced. Don't get me wrong, I like how he looks, and I've really come to love that first Avengers design of Hawkeye. And I'm just glad the purple's there at all. But I wish it was more vibrant. I wish it was a more clear purple. It almost looks red at times. I also think there's a missed opportunity because while he was under mind control, he should have fought Iron Man. Because Hawkeye started as an Iron Man villain. His first appearance was fighting Iron Man and teaming up with Black Widow. Now, I get that in the grand scheme of things, it was just cool to see him as a villain as a reference to his original character. So, I'll take that. I wish he had the helmet, but this version of Hawkeye, seen in Avengers, is pretty good. There's not a ton to say about him because he doesn't have a ton of character scenes. I think the best scene in terms of his character is when he asks Natasha how many people he killed, and she refuses to tell him. It really makes you see that this character cares about other people and is really worried about all the damage he did. I kind of like to believe he carries some of that guilt with him, and maybe that's why he's friendlier to some of the would-be enemy characters, like Scarlet Witch. But speaking of Scarlet Witch, I think we should go on to talking about Avengers Age of Ultron Hawkeye, the movie where Clint really gets his time in the spotlight. So, Age of Ultron, everybody says, is not as good as Avengers. I disagree because Clint gets a lot more screen time in it, and he, has so much development. It starts off with him getting injured, and they have to, replace his skin with the thing that eventually makes Vision. I think they call it a cocoon. It is nuts, but it's just cool to see an action scene where he gets to participate on the heroes team just to start us off with. Of course, in the first one, we had plenty of arrow scenes, and yes, the arrows are downplayed in this one, which sucks. I love it when the man gets to use his trick arrows. He does get a couple really cool ones, though, which I am all about. But Clint, for the most part, is getting beat up, which I actually even like that, because in My Life as a Weapon, Clint will constantly have to wear bandages and have cuts all over his face. Because he's human. Of course he's getting ragdolled. And that's his, whole arc in this movie. He's not sure if he can stand with these other characters. As his wife puts it, these gods. He doesn't feel like they need him. And I know, as a fan of this character, that a lot of people who watch these movies feel the same. They don't value Hawkeye. Even though, a lot of times, I feel like he's kind of the heart of the team. And I know I'm the big Hawkeye fanboy, so of course I'm going to say something like that, but really think about that. When everybody is beaten and broken, Hawkeye endangers himself and his family to help his other family, the Avengers, by taking them to his farmhouse. Of course, we meet Hawkeye's family, his beautiful children. I don't know why I said it like that. I meant to say beautiful wife, because she's played by who she's played by. But I love the idea of Hawkeye being a parent. This has been touched on in the comics before, including the terrible Ultimate comics. But Hawkeye being a dad in the movies is neat. It kind of feels like he's taking care of the other team members, especially Scarlet Witch. I really like this dynamic for him. Also, it leads to some of the best lines where he's driving that car in Sokovia and he just looks over into Nat and he's like, who needs a dining room? We could just knock that out. I love this characterization. I think it's great. I think the only misstep with Hawkeye in this movie is they kind of do a death fake out. And for the record, I'm glad they didn't kill him. But after that death fake out, he really doesn't have anything to do. He's not contributing to the other overall plot. He's also a little self-aware, which is kind of funny, but it also feels like he's devaluing himself, which is not what the arc of this movie is about. He's literally saying, hey, I am needed on this team. I also don't really like that he retired, but yeah, I get it. After everything that happened and a near-death experience with a kid on the way, yeah, it's probably the smartest thing. And I can't say that comic book Clint wouldn't do the same thing. Overall, I think Age of Ultron Hawkeye really turned this character into its own, honestly. Like, it distanced itself from the comics more, but did actively reference them. I love that he has a farmhouse, like what he grew up in Iowa. I don't know if the MCU is going to keep that origin story of him growing up in Iowa and joining the circus, but I would absolutely love to see it, and I'm glad that even in that little small way, it was referenced. I think Hawkeye's suit also gets upgraded a little bit in this movie. It's closer to the comic book version, but they are just not ready to commit to that. If you're gonna do it, give him the frickin' helmet. Give him the helmet, let him wear the full costume, make it purple and blue. Stop trying to imply the costume and just give us the costume. I think that's all I have to say about Age of Ultron, Hawkeye. Is there anything else? Oh, of course, I almost forgot! The best scene, the absolute best Hawkeye scene in the MCU is him talking to Scarlet Witch and inspiring her to become an Avenger. This is great dialogue from him, where he just goes, I'm going back out there because it's my job. If you want to stay here, I'll send your brother, you'll be safe. But if you go out there, you need to fight. And you need to fight to kill, because you're an Avenger, and we're going to protect people. I love this. It's 100% the end of his story in this movie, where he's like, yeah, I have a bow and arrow. It's nuts, but I'm going back out there, because they need me. I really think Hawkeye's character is understated in a lot of these movies. I wish he got more of the spotlight. And in this one scene, he gets it full blood and center. Plus, he also does this cool thing with arrows where he like Wolverines them out and then shoots all of them. It is magnificent, my friends. Now, let us go to a different time, a time where all the heroes were not fighting on the same side. Instead, there was a civil war. So Hawkeye in Civil War, again, it's another cameo, but he actually has more to do here. I don't know if I like that Ant-Man only ever calls him bow and arrow guy, even though he's supposed to be this huge Avengers fanboy. And usually I do like it when people make fun of Hawkeye. Like, I laugh my ass off at the Deadpool 2 joke where he loses his powers and he's like, just give me a bow and I'm basically Hawkeye. I adore shit like that. But I have to admit, I did cringe a little bit at the Ant-Man thing. However, I forgave Scott immediately because one of the most iconic scenes from the comics brought to life, Ant-Man being shot off of Hawkeye's arrow. It is glorious. I was hoping he would go big at the end and uppercut somebody like he does in Avengers or Mightiest Heroes, but sabotaging Iron Man's suit is pretty awesome. I also like that even though comic book Hawkeye is very cocky, and that's something I get into, this Hawkeye isn't really. He's actually pretty calm and okay with taking a loss, which is why when he's like, I can't seem to miss, and then Iron Man takes out all his arrows, he's just like, major luck, and then Scarlet Witch brings down all the cars. He's willing to be a team player. He doesn't need to be the center of attention, and I like that. I think some of the better scenes in this include him fighting Vision, because arguably Vision is the most powerful person on Iron Man's team. He has an Infinity Stone in his head. Who fights him? Clint. And no, he can't beat him, but he does stun him for a little bit and gets Wanda out of there, which I think is awesome. I love the development of this friendship. It honestly saddens me a little that Hawkeye never had a cameo in WandaVision. I really thought he was going to be the friend reaching out to help her out of her depression. Also, I can't forget the whole, we haven't met yet. I'm Clint. I don't care. It's awesome to see Hawkeye fight Black Panther and hold his own. A lot of people forget that Hawkeye isn't just an archer. He is a combatant. He has been trained in all kinds of physical arts, and he's a weapon master. He doesn't just have to use a bow. He can use a bow staff. He can use a sword, which we'll get to Hawkeye and swords later. That's actually going to come up again in a different video. His suit in this one is finally closer to purple, like the vivid purple I'm hoping for. However, it is also darker and could easily be mistaken for black. I get that this could be good for stealth situations, but can't we just get the helmet? However, I did see in the concept art there were actually ideas of giving him the ultimate suit, which is a very cool looking suit, but I happen to hate and despise, and we'll be talking about why I hate and despise the ultimate suit in Avengers Endgame. Okay, so why do I hate the ultimate suit? Well, in the ultimate suit, in Ultimate, Hawkeye's family dies, and he loses pretty much everything and goes nuts. He stops using the bow, he starts using guns. He is a crazy, violent maniac, and he is not Clint Barton. He is not the character I love. And the MCU is so smart because they literally brought that in a cool way. Friggin' Avengers Endgame opens with Hawkeye losing his family. And he does lose himself to that same madness. I was scared he was going to be an antagonist in this movie before it came out. But when Nat reaches out to him and Black Widow is able to talk some sense into him and give him hope, that's my Hawkeye. That's comic Hawkeye. He's scared. He doesn't want to get hurt again. He's put up some walls. But of course, his friend can break right through them. Now, the costume in this is not that great. My worst fears came to life. It is an adaptation of the Ronin suit, and to be fair, when it is the Ronin suit, it's pretty cool. When he has the hood up and the mask, it's pretty cool. He doesn't do that for long, though. He mostly just wears black with a little yellow on it. It's not that great, and it's a fine costume. It looks fine, but I prefer my Hawkeye to have purple, dang it. Also, I can't think of many trick arrows that are used in this one besides the grenade arrow. I know that a couple were used in Civil War that were pretty cool, including his multi-shot arrow. But for this one specifically, there's not a huge focus on it. There is a flare arrow used, which I'm glad to see. But, you know, it's Avengers Endgame. There was a lot to balance. I also do like that Hawkeye was the one who had to protect the Infinity Gauntlet. It's really cool to have this character who has no powers, literally nicknamed the Powerless Avenger, be the one to hold this thing that decides the fates of the Earth. And literally, he's tired, he's beat up, and we get the amazing callback of Black Panther looking at him and going, "Clint, give it to me." I love this. I wish we could have saw some more scenes between T'Challa and Clint. I really hope Clint gets a chance to interact with more characters. I love his interactions with Scarlet Witch, and I would love to see him have some dialogue with characters like, I don't know, Moon Knight, for example? Maybe get some Winter Soldier action with him? That sounds a little sexier than I meant it to sound. But nonetheless, I would love to see some hot, steamy dialogue between Bucky Barnes and Clint Barton. So, I think that pretty much... Oh, wait. I cannot forget about Vormir. Now, when I watched the movie the first time, I was sure. I was convinced Clint wasn't getting out of this. I was terrified because, honestly, I knew Hawkeye's story could keep going. I knew there could be so many possibilities with this character, and I will talk so much about them in the future. Unfortunately, it really looked like they were going to kill him off. But they didn't. They killed off Black Widow instead, which I think is a more interesting choice. Everyone expected Hawkeye to die there. Hell, I think some people were rooting for it. But the idea that now he grieves his friend, and probably blames himself a bit, means we still get some of that baggage from Endgame. We get to see him overcome that. I also wonder how much of his character from this movie is going forward. I love seeing that scene where he is hurt emotionally and he's just looking to Hulk and screaming, "You go to space and you talk to him." I love feeling for this guy because as I called him the heart of the team in Age of Ultron and Civil War, I don't think that's the case here. Here I see him as an outcast, someone who has lost himself because of what Thanos did, and so many people in the team just not understanding that. And the one person who really, really did get that, well, she's dead now. I want to see where this goes. I want to see how this affects MCU Hawkeye and how it affects his mentorship of Kate Bishop. Anyways, I bet you're wondering, of all of these suits, which one my favorite is. Well, it's no secret. It's the Age of Ultron suit. It's the closest they got. It's not that great. And the new Hawkeye suit for the new show is much better. But all in all, this is a good costume, and it is the closest to his comic book counterpart. I really, really wanted that helmet, but maybe we'll get it one day. So, what do I think of MCU Hawkeye as a whole? Well, I think the character's whole thing is overcoming flaws. Like, that's usually the story of Hawkeye, and someone could be like, "Oh, well, that's the story of every fictional character." But no, with Hawkeye, it's a little bit different. Hawkeye is actively kind of self-destructive, which could be part of his wanting to stay on the team even though he doesn't feel valued in Age of Ultron. Or ignoring his kids, that way he can go and try to save the day. It's the right thing to do, but somebody still gets hurt. And that's how it's self-destructive. I think Clint as a character in these movies is very much encapsulated by the word father. He wants to take care of everybody. He wants to protect everybody. And he really can't protect everyone. And now, at the end of Endgame, he's kind of failed a lot of people. He did save his family with the help of the Avengers, but he's lost his best friend. He keeps losing. He really doesn't get a ton of wins. He almost died in Age of Ultron and had to be saved by Quicksilver, and that costed his life. I guess going forward, I would really like Hawkeye to have some guilt about these things. I would like to see nightmares of his time being controlled by Loki. I think that this new angle of this big-hearted Hawkeye is a great reference to the comics, but also its own original thing. In the comics, Hawkeye is constantly getting himself hurt emotionally because he cares too much. That's why he's such a meat-headed jerk. It's a facade. He puts it up to protect himself. It's a wall. Here, movie Hawkeye has no said walls. He just gets defensive from time to time. Weirdly enough, we've kind of actually built up to where he is kind of being a jerk to people to defend himself. Like him screaming at Hulk. I would love to see, in the show, Hawkeye carrying some guilt with him as he is training up maybe his successor, or at least his partner. Anyways, guys, what would you like to see from the Hawkeye show, and how do you feel about Hawkeye's appearances in the MCU? I love this character. I love this iteration. It is not my favorite, and I think they need... the biggest thing they could do, if they just make him more of a smartass, like if they give him more smart-alecky jokes in the movies, I think that would go a long way to pleasing me specifically. But I love this character regardless. I mean, look at him. You're beautiful. Well, thank you all for watching. And Hawkeye Month is still going on. Every week there will be 2 videos. This video is the first, but come back in a couple days to hear some suggestions of what they could add to Avengers Campus. including a focus on this guy. I don't know where to point. This guy, this guy. I'm not pointing anywhere correctly. But please subscribe and please talk about this video. Get people talking about it because I need that sweet, sweet merch. Please, my friends. And please talk about how amazing this character is. He is great. He is wonderful. And I can't wait for the MCU to do him justice. Thank you, guys.